final process in printing the clipper is, of course, the press, which actually prints the papers. This is a press we've had for a couple of years now. It's a Harris press. It's called a web press, and each one of these units here, these big blue towers, is a web. What will happen is, like we showed you in some of the other segments, the first couple of webs of the press down here are colored, so they're only printing a certain color. The first one is yellow, then magenta. This one I'm standing in front of is blue, and then from this way up the end of the press, they're all just black and white. And what will happen is the color always stays kind of the same. That's why in the clipper we can publish color on the front page, the back page, and the inside pages. And we can do a thing called spot color, which you can print on the back of every color page. But the color choices are much more limited. It's usually only one color, and it's usually whatever the pressman has lying around, whatever he has a little bit of extra. There's usually not a lot of choice there. And what will happen is the web press is set up to do a maximum of 32 pages. Depending on how many pages we have in the clipper this week, sometimes they have to be rearranged or reconfigured a little bit to fit a certain number of pages. 32 is our maximum for each section, but we sometimes will fluctuate between 16, 20, 24, 28, and 32. The clipper is two sections, an A and a B. B is usually sports, A&E, calendar, and things like that. It's usually a little bit smaller. So what will happen once the press starts rolling is that Mark, a pressman, will kind of go up and down the press, checking, making sure there's no tears in the paper. He'll also use a lot of these knobs and dials, which look very complicated, and they are, believe me, I don't understand it, to adjust the mix of ink and water. Like we talked about in some of the other segments, a lot of this technology is very, very old. It's still just kind of ink, water, and paper. And depending on the mix of ink, depending on the amount of photos on a page, he may need to make small adjustments each way. So he'll use these knobs and these levers here to make adjustments to the water levels, the ink levels, and small, minute adjustments to the roll of paper and where it is itself, just to make sure everything lines up correctly. And after that, there's still a couple more machines here in the press room that are involved in the process, and we'll kind of go around the room and talk a little bit about each one. At the end of the printing process, as the papers come down off to the end of the press, they're all sort of sucked together and cut in half and then folded using this part of the end of the press here. And that's why when you get the paper in the morning, whether you buy it on the newsstand or it winds up at your doorstep, it has that sort of classic newspaper fold to it. Once those folded newspapers are printed, the press's job is done. And then the papers will come up this conveyor belt here to this table, where they are then jogged. And jogging is a process that basically just means you shuffle them all together so that they make a nice neat pile, so that then they can be tied and things like that. So what will happen is after the waste papers stop printing and you've got usable papers, they're then jogged and put into bundles of about 50 and piled up on a pallet in the corner of the room. And what happens after the entire press run is done and you have enough papers for the newsstand and home delivery and office and things like that, is that they're then run through the mailing machine. The mailing machine is a big sort of corner-shaped machine we have in the corner of the press room, and that will attach labels directly to each paper. And then the papers are sorted by mailing route and put into #1 bags, which are big burlap sacks, plastic sacks, from the post office that look something like this. Those are organized by postal route, and then they're taken in the back of somebody's car up to the Duxbury post office, and that's sort of the end of the paper's journey here at the Clipper.
Well, that concludes our video tour of behind the scenes at the Clipper. I hope that this video series was informative and you learned a little bit and it told you a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes here at the paper. But as I said in the beginning of this whole series, as soon as one issue of the Clipper rolls off the press, I gotta get started on the next one. So I gotta get back inside and start planning out my week. Thanks for coming by.